Hi, I'm Keith. I'm 39, American, and I just left my 15-year career in global health to move to Paris and become a pastry student. Yeah, that still feels weird to say. Up until recently, I was living in Cape Town with my husband. I had built a stable career evaluating international development programs, mostly around sub-Saharan Africa. But earlier this year, everything changed. USAID, the United States Agency for International Development, was dissolved. And suddenly all the work that I, as well as my husband, were doing started to unravel. So in the middle of that instability, my husband and I looked at each other and thought, what are we holding on to and what are we ready to let go of? We realized that we could use this chaos as a kind of permission to allow ourselves to think about reimagining the lives that we actually wanted. So for me, the answer was pastry. It always comes back to pastry with me. I've loved pastry, desserts, baking, food generally since high school. I started cooking for my family when my parents were working, and I fell in love with Rachel Ray and her 30-minute meals. And just ever since then have loved the idea of cooking for others, imparting emotions and a sense of community into the things that I cook, and creating that space around which people can come together, we can make memories, laugh, cry, whatever we need in the moment. But for me, food really is a central theme in my life. And so even though I know I've loved food all of my life and that I've always wanted to pursue something with food, I never gave myself the permission to think about actually pursuing that as a career. I spent all this time and money investing in myself, going to these wonderful and amazing schools for jobs that seemed, from an objective perspective, more serious or more prestigious. And yet, the entire time that I've been working, I have had this sort of yearning and this little niggling inside of what would have happened if. I got really close when I was, I think, 22 to actually applying to culinary school. My parents weren't huge fans of that idea, so then I found something even better, and I went to Peace Corps, which honestly was one of the best things I've ever done, but was kind of a different escape that I think I was searching for with culinary school at the time. For me, when I started thinking about where do I want to take this time, where do I want to recreate my life, I immediately thought of France. Because in grad school, I lived in Paris for about 5 months, and it was such an incredible time. It was a formative time in my life. I had made some of my best friends in that period and really learned a lot about myself. And it feels like it's a place that really pushes me out of my comfort zone. I have a certain persona that I take on when I'm living and speaking in French. So yeah, obviously I thought France. When it came to thinking about where in France, we had to think about both what I was looking for and what my husband Joe was looking for. I wanted to train deeply in a tradition that values rigor and artistry, and French pastry is very much that. And my husband Joe really wanted to find a place where he could grow his art practice, he could explore galleries, and really create and deepen a community around his artistry. Of course, there was fear. Starting over at nearly 40 is not glamorous. I wondered if I was going to feel out of place in the classroom, with so many people that were likely be just coming out of high school or at least in their early 20s. I thought, what if I regret completely stepping away from this career that I had spent the last 15 years building and enjoying at times and dreading at times, if I'm being honest. But it was still something I was very proud of. But I kept coming back to this question. What if I don't try? It really felt like the universe, in many ways around me, through my own choices and through choices that I had no control over, was nudging me towards this change. So this channel is going to be a chronicle of that leap of faith. From global health to pâte à choux, from spreadsheets to sugar. But I hope that it's going to be something bigger than that. I want this channel to be a space where we can romanticize our everyday lives, to slow down, to pay attention, and to find beauty in the things that are otherwise very ordinary. Because they're in our lives for a reason, and we should appreciate what we have in front of us. And try to find a way to stop seeking out and hoping for more, because what we have is already enough. I personally want to try to push myself to document that, to take a cinematic lens to living more mindfully and creatively. So if you've ever felt stuck in a job, in a version of you, or in a life that feels like it no longer fits, I hope that this space can be a place where you can feel less alone. So if you're curious about what happens to someone who starts over at 39, be sure to hit like and subscribe to this channel. And drop a comment. I'd love to know, if you could reinvent your life, what would you do now? Thanks for being here. I'm Keith, and I am just getting started. Again.